Everyone. My name is Temitayo Olatunde. I'm the Executive Director of Temvert Empowerment Foundation. I'm very delighted to open this conversation on powering education equally, energy solutions for girls and boys. This side event is at the ECOSOC Youth Forum 2026. It is organized by Temvert Empowerment Foundation in partnership with the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, also co-sponsored by Children and Youth International. Today, we're going to discuss a very important topic, which is the lack of access to energy in schools. Oftentimes, when we look at around us, we discover that schools in our communities do not have access to electricity, and this often affects their learning outcomes, their learning experience. If you go to schools around you, you discover that they don't have enough energy, they don't have access to electricity, and obviously, when there is a lack of access to electricity, there will be a lack of the use of technology. They won't be able to use technology. They won't be able to have enough experience that actually needed to thrive as students. So this side event is very important for us to discuss this topic. And let us look at this problem. I have conversation around how we can solve this problem. How does energy access improve the learning outcome of students? I'm so happy to let you know that we have amazing, distinguished speakers in our midst. They come from different professional fields, from the energy sector, from development field, from social impact, from education sector. They are here to discuss these topics. And also, we have Shekina Ajayi, who is our policy and advocacy lead. She will be the one moderating this event. I'm happy to introduce Shekina to everyone, who is our moderator. She has a master's degree in public administration and also a Bachelor of Law. She leads our advocacy initiatives at Temvert Empowerment Foundation. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to an impactful conversation. Shekina, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Temitayo, and thank you for that introduction as well. Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome us all to this year's edition of the ECOSOC Youth Forum side event. And I assure you that you're in for a ride and you're going to have an amazing time. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead to introduce our first speaker. That's Dr. Patrick Agese. And we're going to have his bio played now, and afterwards we'll get right into the session. Thank you.
Dr. Patrick Agese is the Chief Executive Officer of PAM Africa and a world-renowned scientist in clean energy and sustainability. He has over a decade of experience in developing and leading clean energy projects, with expertise spanning energy from waste solutions, renewable energy, and energy storage innovations. His contributions to the sector have earned him recognition from prestigious platforms including the iChemie Global Awards and the BBB Awards. A versatile thought leader, Dr. Patrick has held key roles at leading multinational organizations such as Costain, UNESCO, Givaudan, and HGEN Capital, where he contributed to advancing innovation, strategy, and sustainable energy development. He is also a contributing member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology, IET. Dr. Patrick holds a first-class degree in green energy technology and a PhD in energy engineering from the University of Reading, United Kingdom. He currently leads the activities of PAM Africa, where the organization's central mission is to drive advanced energy innovations that support a cleaner, more resilient, and more sustainable future for the African continent. We are honored to have him as our speaker for this year's ECOSOC Youth Forum side event.
Oh. Okay, I believe I'm audible now. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I think I can hear
All
you.
right. Sorry, I thought I was unmuted already. Welcome, Dr. Patrick. So good to have you here with us today. That's such an impressive bio, and thank you for inspiring. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get right into the first question for today, and we're just going to glean from your well of knowledge. So, my first question to you is, from your experience in advancing energy solutions across Africa, how does limited access to reliable energy directly affect education, especially for girls and boys in underserved communities?
No, that's good. Thank you very much for having me on this webinar today. It's a huge pleasure of mine to meet with you guys as well and seeing some other faces. The energy access space is very diverse. I would say that over the last half a decade, been working in Nigeria specifically, we've seen that there are different types of solutions that have been introduced to provide access to electricity, all the way from like the grid itself to something little as a solar lantern or solar home system. And when we went ahead into the market to really try and see how we can build what we call our net zero villages, we really learned a lot with on the educational perspective, right? So if you think about an average school in Nigeria or within our net zero villages has thousands of students, relatively young people who are trying to learn, and they don't have access to like computers. There's no access to just basic lighting. And even if there is access to those appliances, it's also for a limited time because they haven't got 24-hour access to the power. So that limitation affects the quality of education that they get. Um, if they're taking homework home, have to use like lanterns to do those homeworks. There's no kind of most of the time there's no lights at home, so actually studying during after school hours is very difficult for those students as well. So it affects a lot of things within the educational layer. Um, but I think for specific underserved communities, it's they feel the most because within the served community, you say the people in the urban areas, there's access to the grid, although it's not 100% available, but it's available most of the time now. And also there's access to the generator. Some of these schools don't actually have generators or they can't even afford to turn on those generators considering the high price of diesel at the moment. So I think taking all this into consideration is actually very important to get electricity to schools specifically because it can improve the educational outcome of that school. There's more students that can use computers. They can do homework after school hours, and I think that brings it all together.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for what you shared. You mentioned the importance of the availability of energy, especially for undeserved communities. And I think I particularly like the illustration that you gave. For example, when students take assignments back home after school, because we know that school is not just within the hours of when they are like in the school, four walls of the school, but even education and learning is what happens afterwards. And this is very pivotal. And there must be, that's actually one of the major reasons for this session. So we are not just highlighting the problems, we are also talking about the solutions. We're also talking about what can we do to make this better for children in undeserved communities. So thank you so much for that. Okay. So the second question I'm going to ask you today is what practical and scalable energy solutions can be deployed to improve learning environments in schools, particularly in areas with limited infrastructure?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Particularly with areas of limited infrastructure, is the key word there because
Yeah.
there's so many technologies that can. I mean, we're now living in the golden age where access to technology is not the challenge, but mainly the funding of that access to technology is the main challenge. So if you were to deploy something in areas of limited infrastructure, you would have to get something that's decentralized, which means it doesn't have to rely on a single source of power, and can actually generate energy from any location. Um, Within the context of how PAM thinks, we believe that for an area with limited infrastructure, especially where you consider education, we prioritize solar energy because we have abundance of sunlight in Nigeria specifically. So we always prioritize solar energy. And there's different scales of solar energy systems. So you can have all the way to large scale infrastructure, mini grid systems, which can go up to 1 megawatt in generation supply. But that same technology can be filtered down all the way to a simple solar light, which could be used for doing homework after work hours, or a small level, let's say a mesh grid, or a small level systems that could be used within the schools for powering the computers, the lighting, and all the other teaching appliances required, right? But it's important to understand that it's not that this technology is not there. This technology has been there for over a decade now. Although they're getting cheaper every day, but we are in the right time where you can get this technology there. But the question that should be asked is, okay, great, the technology is here. Why is it still not? Why are we still having schools without power? Or why are people going home without power? And that where it comes to the main problem of affordability. Um, it to afford a decentralized energy system that is reliable, it's quite expensive for the average school. So who takes responsibility for paying for this asset? Uh, and it's very hard to move that cost to the end user, because if you think about their income, the majority of them can't even afford this. So there should be some way of some subsidy or support provided to these schools to be able to afford this technology, because it's quite important. You've got to keep the lights on. There's no way at this stage, at this day and age in Nigeria, or in an African country, to compete on a global scale. We cannot compete without access to electricity. And what I mean by compete is, first thing is education is the most important metric for any country. When it comes to competing on a global scale, you have to provide quality education. And if you can't provide electricity for education, the foundation of that economy is actually in doom, right? So, how do we think about that? But there's so many ways. There's solar home systems that are relatively affordable now. And there's introducing like new business models where people can rent solar systems, can lease solar systems, which are now making it a bit more affordable for people to get onto those technologies that can solve their energy access problems. So I am quite still bullish. I'm still quite saying that, still supportive that there would be a lot more schools being electrified. I know that I'm a little bit much more aware to the activities being done in Nigeria at the moment. And I would say that the federal government have done a lot of work through the Rural Electrification Agency to electrify some of these tertiary schools, universities, and hopefully that work will filter down into the primary schools and the secondary schools as well. Um, but then again, these are more government bodies and government schools. What happens to the private schools as well? So I think with the private schools, um, I would suggest that, I mean, the leaders of those private schools should start thinking about adopting renewable energy systems, uh, either within the schools, but also as a way for students to take some of that technology home and support with their homework.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, sir. And thank you for those very important solutions that you highlighted. And I think what I particularly like the most about what you said is that you are not suggesting that we it's not too far-fetched, if I may put it that way. So you're not saying go and bring something that is non-existent. What you're basically saying is in Nigeria, for instance, we already have like ample supply of sunlight. So let's just use what we have to get what we want or what we need. And like you said, the key word in that question was for communities with limited infrastructure. So since it's not like we are looking for the raw material is already available in that sense. It's just about converting it into good use. So thank you so much. And I believe that a lot of us on this call have gotten some quite deep insights from what you've shared. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the next speaker now. Thank you so much, Dr. Patrick, again. We're still with you on the call, so afterwards, we are still going to take questions. And if anyone in the audience has some questions for Dr. Patrick, please just note your questions, or you can just drop them in the chat. Then afterwards, we're going to have a session of questions and answers. So thank you very much. Can we just, let me see the comment section, the emojis, just clap. And let's just celebrate and appreciate Dr. Patrick. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second speaker now. And that's Engineer Kemi and Melody Areola. And I'm going to leave it to the technical team to just play a bio. Thank you.
Engineer Oluwakemi and Melody Areola is a distinguished tri-sector strategist, trade advocate, and visionary leader committed to driving inclusive socio-economic growth across Africa and beyond. With over 2 decades of experience spanning public policy, ICT, corporate relations, and social development, she brings a unique blend of innovation, strategy, and global insight to every platform she serves. As the founder and CEO of Vivacity Development, Oluwakemi leads a forward-thinking tri-sector social enterprise committed to sustainable development goals, including economic empowerment, trade facilitation, climate action, gender equity, and youth inclusion. At the Federal Ministry of Communications, and later the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Oluwakemi played a pivotal advisory role supporting ministerial leadership in connecting governance with digital innovation and youth empowerment. Oluwakemi has been instrumental in convening high-level events and platforms across UNGA, COP28, COP29, and the UN Commission on the Status of Women. An advocate for Africa's economic rise, she has facilitated public-private partnerships and diaspora engagement programs that promote skills transfer, cross-border collaboration, and sustainable business models aligned with the AFCFTA and Agenda 2063. Beyond her economic development work, Oluwakemi is also the founder of Vivacity PR and the author of 40 Going on 80. Through her philanthropic platform, the Kemi and Melody Areola Foundation, KAMAF, she supports youth empowerment, education, and family welfare initiatives. A certified electronics/telecommunications engineer and Prince 2 certified project manager, Oluwakemi has received accolades such as the Nova Prize Award, New Africa Global Honors Award, and the Jet Age Nation Builders Award. Engineer Areola continues to inspire through her enduring mission to shape equitable trade, inclusive investment, and sustainable prosperity for Africa's future. We are honored to have her as our speaker for this year's ECOSOC Youth Forum side event.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Temitayo, and welcome, Engineer Kemi. Once again, a very impressive bio. I think for all our speakers this year, we really have powerhouses. Okay, so I'm just going to give Mrs. Kemi the floor. Can I hear from you, Ma? Can I hear just to get a response, and then we proceed with the questions.
Good evening. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
All
My
right.
honor to.
All right. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here. Welcome and welcome again, ma'am. So I'm just going to proceed with my with the first question that I have for you today on powering education equally, energy solutions for girls and boys all across the world. So the first question is that from a development perspective, how can energy access be better integrated into education planning and infrastructure development? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. And once again, good evening, everyone. So for us in our organization, we've been working on the future of work for a while now. And it speaks to how the landscape of the workplace will be in the next, number of years. And what's most important for us in this particular topic is the fact that energy has to be sustainable, and that needs to be implemented into projects from the get, so from the beginning. When one is planning an educational institution, one needs to consider the energy factors. Once upon a time, everybody plugged to the grid and the grid is available. But now energy solutions and energy systems have evolved. They've evolved for the good of our planet. They've evolved for the good of our pocket, but they've also evolved because of scarcity. And this has, like I said, future of work is our focus. So this has also caused a boom of jobs to actually open, which are the jobs in this, do we want to call it renewable energy space, just for this particular conversation. So in the planning of actual educational institutions, one needs to see them as energy hubs that can actually feed the communities that they belong to. Feeding this into the curriculum and ensuring that this is part of the actual this is part of the framework or the legislation that is laid down for the organizations in the beginning to say, you can't even come with a blueprint of an educational institution if you've not factored in the energy usage for that organization, as well as the community that it actually dwells in, because then you're not just providing that education solution, but you're providing the education solution, you're providing energy for the community, and you're actually, creating jobs when you look at it from that particular perspective.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. I think what you shared is really pivotal and very important because I believe that generally, especially when it comes to education, the system, or would I say the organizations, mostly just tend to focus on the schooling, the maths and English, the, integrated science and all of that. But just even listening to you, I myself have learned something new, that there's a way that we also need to incorporate energy. And like you said, from the get-go, include it in the project, because you cannot just focus on maths, English, biology, medicine, law, the rest of them, and you are not putting into consideration the energy that is required, because it's almost like it goes for nothing once that one is not prepared or adequately prepared for. Then even all of the things that we're focusing on, we would not be able to accomplish or achieve them. So thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. So my second question to you now would be, what role can partnerships amongst governments, the private sector, and civil society play in scaling energy solutions that support better education outcomes for girls and boys?
So, great, lovely question. And I like the fact that you asked me this question because if anyone knows, I'm a tri-sector strategist, which means that I provide strategies that cut across the three different sectors, which are the government, the private sector, and the CSO. And one of the things that we always say for my organization is that the government should not be in the business of doing business. The government should be in the business of creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So once the government has created the enabling environment for the business to thrive, as well as the policy needed to, the bedrock on which we're about to build, you can now have private sector. Private sector drives for capital growth. So private sector drives for profit. So you can see where the private sector comes in to speak about the job creation and the potential profits that can be in that environment. And we'll pick up a probable case scenario in a second. And then you see CSOs where they come in to make sure that it is fair across board and also support. I know back in the day, we used to always speak about other people's money, which is OPM, but we've now moved to speaking about OPR, which is other people's resources. So the CSOs come in with the resources, whether it's the technical, the training, things like that, those are available for them to come in with, while the private sector, like we said, drives for capital. So private sector in driving for capital, that's where we look at whether it's investment strategies, right? So now let's look at an educational institution. I'm going to speak from the Nigerian perspective. I did see that question before, whether are we speaking about Nigeria, Africa, or the world in totality? But let's just use a rural village in Nigeria, for instance, as an energy hub. So we've created this institution as an energy hub, and it's now serving the local community. So it's actually providing not just energy to that institution, but energy to the local community. So there could be a business near the school that is getting the energy from this institution, first and foremost, or it could be that a business invests in ensuring that there is energy available for the institution. So I could say, I'd like to build a school where I'll be teaching young boys and young girls about agriculture. But I have the land, I have the teachers, but I don't have the finances for the energy. A private sector organization could come to me and say, we'll invest in the energy solution that you want, but what you will do is I'm so sorry about that. What you will do is you will feed the local businesses or the local residential homes in that area with XYZ units of energy, and they will pay for that. So when they are paying for that, this private sector organization that has invested now has a return on investment. So it's not that they've just done something for you for free, but they've seen it as an investment. While you've been able to obviously develop the educational institution that you're looking for, and then the CSOs are able to come in to ensure that it's free and fair, you're not overpricing, there's no child labor, or do you understand where I'm coming from? No exploitation being involved in it. And that's just one case scenario of how the three sectors can come together to make something profitable for all three. So profitable for the CSO, where we have a better world and better lives for all. Profitable for the educational institution because energy has been provided for the education of the boys and girls, and profitable for the business that has invested because there's an ROI, a return on investment in what they've put in. So I feel that's one way we can get the three sectors to come together. The main focus is ensuring that it is sustainable, because you could have a grant or a loan from an organization to kick off your energy supply. So they could probably provide you with the necessary equipment that one needs. But how does it become sustainable? How do you ensure that 2-3 years down the line, if you don't go looking for another funding, or if you don't start using the tuition of the students, how will you be able to fund this particular project and keep it going? So I think if the three sectors come together, they're able to have these type of models, and it's a win-win for all.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. That was really profound. And I think I particularly like the quotes that you gave when you started. You said the government should not be in the business of doing business. Wow, mind blown. I think that should actually be put on a placard somewhere in our country, especially in Nigeria, so the government can see that. Because, like you said, the role of the government is to empower businesses, so not necessarily go into the business. And I particularly like the illustration that you gave as well, because you are not just now speaking theoretically, but you gave a practical illustration to say, okay, this is how the three sectors can intersect. This is the advantage, like it's a win-win for everybody. Everybody gets an ROI, basically. And you also touched on sustainability as well, which is really key. Like you mentioned in your first question, the world is evolving and we must not stay static as well. All right, I think that's about a summary of all of the like major points that you shared. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. We still have you around with us. Thank you so much for all of the gems that you shared. Can we just celebrate and appreciate Engineer Kemi in the comment section, please? I want to see the clapping emojis. I want to see the celebratory emojis, the thumbs up, and let's just really thank her. Thank you so much. I can see the responses already. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for all of the insights that you've shared. Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our third speaker now. And I believe so far we are like learning a thing or two about powering education equality, energy solutions for boys and girls in Nigeria, in Africa, and all across the world, globally, generally. So we'll move on to our third speaker now, and I believe we're taking notes. I believe we're getting insights from these sessions. And like I mentioned earlier, after Dr. Patrick's session, please take note of your questions. If you have questions, you can start dropping them in the chat, but it might be better to just write it down so we don't miss it. And then at the end of the entire session, we're going to take questions and answers. All right, so we'll move on to Obasanjo Fajemi, and I'll leave it to the media team to play his bio. Thank you.
Obasanjo Fajemi is a social impact leader, education advocate, and first-year PhD student in curriculum and instruction at Purdue University, with a focus on teacher education, artificial intelligence in education, and youth development. He is the founder and executive director of Brace Up the Young Foundation, a nonprofit organization advancing inclusive education and empowerment for marginalized communities in Nigeria. Through his leadership, the foundation has reached over 7,520 students, provided educational resources to more than 650 underserved children, renovated classrooms benefiting over 275 learners, and empowered over 150 adolescent girls through sports-based education and mentorship. His work also extends to civic engagement, where he has supported over 2,400 women and persons with disabilities to participate in governance processes. Obasanjo is particularly committed to bridging the gap between learning and earning for young people in low-income communities. His work focuses on equipping students and teachers with the skills, mentorship, and opportunities needed to succeed in school and transition into meaningful livelihoods. His contributions have been recognized through multiple grants and awards, and he has engaged in global platforms and international education conferences. Across his work, he is driven by a deep commitment to equity, innovation, and building scalable systems that expand access to opportunity. We are honored to have him as our speaker for this ECOSOC Youth Forum 2026 side event.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Temitayo, for that. And welcome, a very big welcome to Mr. Obasanjo. Can I just get a response from you, sir, please, if you are in the room? And
Yeah, I'm
yes,
here.
please. All right, welcome.
Mm.
Thank you. Let's welcome him in the comment section, please. Let's just put the clapping emoji. Let's just welcome him and celebrate him. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. Okay, without further ado, I'm just going to go straight to the first question that I have for you today. And we already had your bio, impressive as well. Like I said, every speaker in this event is a powerhouse. And I know that you work with young people. You have a foundation, Brace Up the Young Foundation. You are the founder of that. And from your work with young people, how do energy challenges show up in their daily learning experiences and opportunities from your experience?
Okay, thank you so much for the invite. And I've been following the discussions, which has been really, really great. So looking at how energy challenges show up in daily learning experience for young people and opportunities, from our work at Brace Up the Young Foundation in Nigeria and across different countries also, we have seen that this energy challenges is not just something in abstract. It is real. It shows up in daily life of learners, both those in low income communities and urban areas, because many students cannot simply study so much or even learn in school to the extent in which they can. So let's look at this whole scenario of AI is taking place. AI needs a lot of energy to learn, but how many people in low income communities, how many students in public schools, in government-owned schools, in charity schools have access to technology that can be powered without electricity, which is a major challenge. So we have worked with schools in which some of these schools are not even connected to the country's power grid. They have no access to energy at all within that learning space. And so you go to a school, you see a full computer lab equipped with computers, but not power to power it up, unless the school have money to get renewable energy. And this is affecting how students learn, especially girls, on how they learn. Now, students go back home to learn, right? Taking Africa as an example, they go back home after the day schools, they need to do their assignments, and late in the night, they don't have power supplies, no energy for them to do the assignment. They need to rely on various ways of energy, maybe candlelight and other sources, which might be detrimental to their health. So this actually discourages learning, and whereby you look at kids from learners from developed countries who have access to energy 24/7, like throughout the day, who have access to energy, are learning without interruption. Now we want these same kids in Africa to catch up with these kids in developed countries using AI and all that, but where is the energy to power this? So this actually disrupts learning in a large extent than we even think, and also disrupt opportunity for young people. So a lot of time, young people want to work remotely, wants to learn, take digital courses, online classes, but a lot of them are faced with challenges. When recruiters are coming to recruit from Africa, the question is, how often do you get power cuts? And the question is, we get power cut almost every day, which actually faces and hinders people, young people, to get meaningful employment, working remotely, and well-paid jobs across the world. So energy challenges is going far beyond just the learning, but also in the opportunities that young people and learners in various parts of the world are facing. And it's a major challenge in which we must address to ensure that we shape access, equity, and the future of learning beyond just limitations of energy.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for all of the insights that you shared. And I believe what you shared is really important. It also just reminds me of something Dr. Patrick mentioned earlier as well, that we want like children, boys and girls in Nigeria to compete globally, but you made like something you said that made that practical is that how do you put people that do not have constant power supply, for instance, like how often do you get power cuts? You said nearly every day, to compete on a global stage with people that have 24/7 power supply, constant electricity. Yes, the AI and all of that. And I think the example you gave really struck me, that there are certain schools, for instance, that have a computer lab full of computers, full of systems and everything. But where's the power? Where's the energy to even power these systems, And it also links up with what Engineer Kemi said earlier as well, when I was giving the illustration about you teach maths, biology, English, but incorporating energy, because at the end of the day, if there's no energy, then even every other thing we want the children to learn, there's no way to really push that or to really make us globally competitive. So thank you so much for all of the insights that you shared and for all of the things that you highlighted. All right. So I'm just going to move on to my second question for you today. And that question is that what community-driven or youth-led solutions? So we know that we've talked about the challenges. You just highlighted and spotlighted some of the challenges and issues that young people face. So what community-driven or youth-led solutions have you seen or supported that can help address these challenges?
Okay, yeah. So part of the community initiative, we are currently working on one, and because at Brace of the Young Foundation, we own a school in a rural community in Abeokuta, Ogun State, where there is basically no power supply in that area, I would say, because most times they just bring the light in the night. So part of what we have done in the school is to buy solar fans. But this year, our top priority is to fully put solar panels in the school and transition the school to renewable energy. However, just like I have mentioned before, we have funders who are ready to give us computers, who are ready to sponsor us with labs, but we don't have people who are ready to invest money in that solar project, because it takes a lot for you to do that. However, a lot of initiatives have come out to address this. We now have I've seen a bank in Nigeria where they use bags and put solar panel in it for children to be able to read at home. So when they come to school, they can be able to charge their bags during the day. And when they get home at night, they bring out the lamp inside the bag and it powers it up. So they have been building this kind of kits whereby it is very easy and you don't need to power the entire house for children to learn. These are all good plans, but the question always comes with how sustainable are they? How sustainable can it become? And what is the fate of communities like Adigbe, where we work, that power supply is not even stable in any way at all? And the funniest thing, the power suppliers take come and say, oh, transformer has blown up today. Oh, they need to buy this thing. And the question is, we don't even have light, and we have contributed like 3 times to repair a transformer that is basically not supplying us anything. So what are we doing there? You get. Then also other part of things that have been done. I think what I will advocate for mostly is about bringing in initiatives from developed countries that has worked. So in developed countries, there are solar farms. How many solar farms do we have in Nigeria? So in Abeokuta, can we have a full solar farm that could power an area? But the challenge comes when the government will tell you, oh, you don't have the right to distribute energy when you want to construct a solar farm. However, with solar farms, we could power up area and even take a full community or local government out of the power grid, reducing the weight of energy distribution on the power grid and making it more sustainable. So we must look for how these solutions that have been done. There are so many solutions in Africa, from the moving the entire school into a solar hub itself, to rebuilding solar farms, to having solar kits. But however, government needs to come up with policy that allow people now to supply and generate electricity to supply the local governments if you cannot supply the entire state. And this is where solar farms. In China, they are already practicing how to put solar farms on water, because people are not staying on water. So can we use that part to do it? I've seen also sustainable projects where solar farms have been used to even make a desert land to start growing trees or grasses and empowering it, helping to also stop deforestation. And so these various ways can be brought into Nigeria, into Africa, to make it sustainable. However, you also mentioned something when you're talking about the biology of doctor and chemistry teaching in schools. How can we combine these other subjects and put solar or energy production into it? The world is moving right now. AI tools are using large number of energy, and energy is becoming a very, very big discussion around the world? How can we start teaching children in primary schools, in secondary schools, how they can generate energy, how they can start learning about energy generations, or even igniting them into that? Not everybody will become doctors, like we know before everyone wanted to be doctors, right? Right now, we can have energy technicians, producers, manufacturers, and even distributors. But we do not need to wait for these kids to get to secondary school or university. Can we start giving them this exposure? Can we start combining basic science and showing them not just about how electricity is conducted, but how renewable energy can be produced from your place? And can we also ensure governments are bringing out policies that can not just help people generate electricity on their own, but also supply the power grid, the national power grid, to make the state more sustainable? Other means that I've seen has been majorly the kits, which has been majorly used in Nigeria. We have the reading textbook, which uses a pen that is not connected to the power grid or whatever to read and help people who are even visually impaired, kids who are visually impaired to learn without that, and also kids who also are not visually impaired to learn. So these various ways are ways in which they have done. For us, it has majorly been about rural electrification for our school, or moving the school entirely out of the power grid into our own energy source, which is solar. But we also need to consider that doing solar projects is very costly in Nigeria. A very good solar project to sponsor a small school is around 3.6 million to 4 million naira. How many schools can afford this? How many schools can afford this? So these are the questions we will look at, even while looking at the project that have been run. Where do these schools get this money to power these systems? Where do they have this money to fund it? School fees payments is not even coming up for most schools as expected because of the whole inflation rate, right? So when we do this, when we look at this part of it, then we can see more youth-led solutions. But yes, I also like the fact that we have seen projects around renewable waste management that has also helped to generate electricity in Nigeria. Although this project has been on the very small scale, but if we can use that, because developed countries renew their ways to generate electricity for the communities, and this is very, very sustainable.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was literally just nodding and taking notes and like wow all through the session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack, but I think where I'll start is that first I'll say well done. Well done for all of the good work that you do. I know you mentioned that you have a school in Ogun State, and despite the fact that there's no power, you on your own, like by your own initiative, even like explored other renewable energy solutions. You introduced a solar fan. Now you are even embarking on a project to try to transition the school entirely into like full solar energy use and all of that. So that's really laudable. Well done. And you mentioned a lot. Like I said, you shared a lot, and I appreciate the solutions that you have. The yes, well done for the incredible work that you do. Someone said that in the comment section. So I appreciate the solutions that you highlighted, but I think one major thing that I've seen across all speakers is government policies. That involvement with the government, the enabling factor even of the government. So individuals are actually willing to, would I say, put in the work. Individuals are willing to make sacrifices, are willing to an extent make life better for young people, boys and girls across, especially in undeserved communities, which is like the highlight of the theme for this year. But the question now is, how willing is our government, how willing are our African communities willing to partner with these individuals that are willing to put in this work? I think that's one major thing that really stood out for me. Another thing that I've noticed across all the speakers today, Dr. Patrick, Engineer Kemi, and Mr. Bassonjo, sustainability. The world is evolving. And I also like the fact that you mentioned job creation as well. what you said about how can we incorporate this energy discussion from a tender age, like right from basic learning, primary school. I know that's one thing Engineer Kemi mentioned as well when she was talking about this field is even a gold mine now. Like parents should not just, your children don't have to do professional courses in quotes, because I put it in quotes because even this is a professional course. But for African parents, a lot of people will see professional courses as be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, things like that. So how can we also expose young people to develop interest in energy right from their weaning age? So thank you so much. Like I said, a lot to unpack, and I believe I've been able to do a good summary. I couldn't touch on everything because, of course, I can't repeat everything that you've said, but thank you so much. So can everyone just help us celebrate and appreciate Mr. Obasanjo in the comment section? Let me just see the clapping emojis. Let me see the thumbs up. Let me see the celebratory emojis. Thank you. And if you have questions as well, please note your questions. You can put them in the chat box, or you can just write them down somewhere. And then when it's time for question and answers, you can just drop your questions so they are not missed. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much again. We really appreciate you. All right, then. Without further ado, or without taking too much time, we're going to move on to the next speaker for today, the last but definitely not the least. And that's Bolanle Oyediran. So I'll leave that to the technical team to play a bio.
Bolanle Oyediran is a founding partner and director of a nonprofit social enterprise registered in the United Kingdom, dedicated to empowering individuals and families facing poverty, financial hardship, and money management challenges. She is a certified money coach, CMC, accredited in California, USA, with over 6 years of experience in behavioral money coaching. Through her work with Wonderful Way CIC, Bolanle has delivered financial capability workshops, training programs, and one-to-one coaching sessions that have supported over 2,500 individuals and families in developing healthier financial behaviors and achieving greater financial stability. Bolanle serves as an elected conference committee member of the United Nations Association, UK, UNA-UK. She has also participated in several international forums, including the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, CSW, in New York, where she served as a delegate representing the United Nations Association, UK, UNA-UK. In addition to her work in financial empowerment, Bolanle is a certified Scrum product owner, CSPO, and holds a BSc in Business Information Systems, alongside a master's degree in International Business Management and Project Management. Her professional background spans financial crime investigation, telecommunications, and project management, where she has contributed to the delivery of multi-million-pound development projects. She also contributes to equality, diversity, and community engagement initiatives connected to regeneration and social impact work in Derbyshire, United Kingdom. Bolanle is deeply passionate about community transformation, grassroots engagement, and social integration, working to create sustainable pathways that improve the well-being of individuals, families, and communities. We are honored to have her as our speaker for the ECOSOC Youth Forum 2026 side event.
All right, thank you, Temitayo, and welcome, a big welcome to Mrs. Bolanle. Can we just welcome her in the comment section, please? Can I see the applause, the welcome? We're glad to have you. Thank you so much. Can I get a response from you, ma'am, please? If you
Absolutely, Shakina.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor and privilege to be here. So good evening, everyone. With no further ado, thank you so much for having me. It's such a great honor to be part of this year's ECOSOC Forum, Youth Forum 2026, pardon me. Today's event is quite personal to me. From the bio, you can tell that I am extremely passionate when it comes to economic development, economic growth. So therefore, my work vast across working with vulnerable people, across deprived communities in the United Kingdom. But I will let you ask your question. But before you ask your question, I have to say this, guys, just give you a bit of a background. So I'm a Nigerian-born lady, Bolanle, and I grew up in I grew up in Nigeria for the first 10 years of my life before traveling to the UK to join my parents. However, when I say I lived in Nigeria, I lived in Mafoluku, just to give you an insight into why, maybe where the passion came from. So I was one of those kids that walked on the streets with no slippers and went to buy my like Begiri and Ewedu at Mafoluko, and then came to the United Kingdom. So I would say I've tasted the best of both worlds. So this topic is quite personal for me, and I'm really grateful to be here. And of course, to all the previous three speakers, incredible work. I am inspired. Well done for all that you've done. I've learned a lot. So I'll leave it to you, Shekena, to proceed with your fabulous work that you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And like I said, all the speakers for today's event, Powerhouse, is really inspiring. Just looking at the work that you do, just looking at your bio, even listening to your bio. So welcome again, and thank you so much for being here, ma'am. So I'll just go to my first question for you. From a gender perspective, how does limited access to energy affect girls and boys differently in terms of education, safety, and participation?
Thank you, Shekina, for that question. First and foremost, I'd like to say this. Energy poverty is not gender neutral. It actually deepens inequality. We have to start from that. However, from a gender perspective, I have to say that limited access to energy affects girls and boys differently across education, safety, and participation. And this is something that, we see clearly on a day-to-day basis in our work at Wonderful Way CIC. So with what we do, one of our objectives is to support families that are living in deprived communities or vulnerable families. And sometimes we find that families are having to choose between topping up their electricity and buying groceries. And I would explain this in context. So in the United Kingdom, there's so many energy solutions. So the people where they get the energy, they get the energies and they pay on a monthly basis. So you have a direct debit with an energy provider. And so people will tell you, actually, I just want to top up, meaning you pay as you go. You know how you have the credit in Nigeria for your phone bill, you credit maybe a T-Salad or whichever network you're using. So depending on how much you've actually top up, that's what you can use. So we have some families that cannot afford to say, just bring in the bill every month. So these kind of families that I support. So you have families saying, rather me, topping up my electricity, can I buy groceries? And how does this have a direct impact? The reality is this actually impacts their children's ability to learn and participate. So what does that mean? It means that a family cannot, top up the electricity to put on their washing machine on or their drying machine on. So think about winter when it's cold, actually cold. And a child is having to think about it. Do I have to go to school with a dirty, smelly uniform because we have to stay in a warm house? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And we have to top up electricity. Also, I would say that, according to research that we did, we found that the World Bank and the International Energy Agency stated that, around 750 million people globally still lack access to electricity, with many more experiencing unreliable and unaffordable energy. Most of the speakers spoke in, I think the last man that spoke, Mr. Obasanjo, mentioned something around people not having access to electricity and Nigeria not being able to compete globally. Can I say something? Even though we are in the UK globally, where we have the power plants, in fact, I think there's a power plant that's just 10 minutes driving from where I live. Despite all of that resources, there are still people in the United Kingdom that cannot afford electricity. So therefore, those people cannot, get involved in community events that happens after school. So if there's a dance group after school, if there's a football club after school, if there is even a learning group after school, because the area, or should I say the community streets doesn't have street lights, you have things around safety issues around, okay, I don't want a girl child to go out during that time because there's no light when they're coming back. So there's safety issues being raised. So in a way, there is an impact on the amount of, involvement, participation that child can actually get involved in due to that limitation. And then you have that issue of a child not wanting to engage in school because he or she feels that, I'm not looking clean enough because last night I couldn't wash my school uniform because we had to keep the house warm. Also for boys, I will say, while boys are also impacted educationally, the outcomes, differ. So boys can have limited access to safe space as well. Sometimes we look at the girls thinking it's just a girl that needs to be protected from, an unsafe environment, things around powered environment as well, that can lead to more time spent in an unstructured, unsafe spaces. So in the United Kingdom, there are some areas that we serve whereby, because of the kind of poverty that is going on in people's household, you find that children are actually leaving their homes to go to places like youth centers because there's electricity there. So they'll say to their parents, I'm going there to study. I'm going there to meet my friends. I'm going there to play because there are more things there that is, energy powered. They have energy power solutions there for them to feel like they're part of the society and meet their friends. These things end up leading some children to joining things like gang grooming. You find that there's violence on the street because these children are from the same kind of category, should I put it that way? They're meeting at the same place, but they're escaping the hardship due to the energy solution that they don't have at home to go outside. But whilst they're going outside, the parent thinks they're going to do something else, but they are being groomed to become part of a gang, or they're being, initiated to get involved in youth violence, street violence and all of that. So energy inequality or poverty, it's deeper than just the four walls of school. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And just to, kill that myth that it's not just in Africa that we have energy, power, solutions, issues. It happens even in the Western world. The bottom line is, when it comes to poverty, it hits deeper than what we can see beyond just educational systems. It hits deeper to things like safety, to things like getting involved, participation by youth, by the young ones, girls or boys, or even dreaming. So I have a daughter that is 7, and my daughter is quite creative, so she can make anything from anything. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And there are times where she would just sit in a corner and there is light for her to do. So we're about to sleep. And you say, please go to bed. She's like, I just want to quickly create this for. And it hits me hard because not every child has that opportunity to say, what, I have everything that I need in terms of energy to be focused, to see what I'm doing, to be able to, get into the nitty-gritty of what I want to create. Think about a 7-year-old in Abeokuta. Think about a 7-year-old, even in this UK, maybe somewhere in London, in Peckham or so, or Brixton, that does not have the opportunity to enhance their skill or to even, get deeper into what they love to do or even enhance their gifting. So it hits the bar. Energy inequality is a very big deal. And hopefully there'll be solutions out of this ECOSOC forum after this entire event that can, bring lasting solutions. I will stop from talking.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for the insights that you have shared, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think one thing that this event is doing for me particularly, and I want to believe this cuts across all the participants and attendees as well, is opening up my mind even to, would I say, conversations or thoughts that I didn't previously have. So yes, we talk about energy, we'll talk about inequality, the unequal distribution, but seeing you even bring it home, and by home, not just like saying that it's not just in Nigeria, like even in Western developed countries, these issues persist. And I think it's also profound how you are literally connecting it to everything. Like it impacts on safety, it impacts on development, it impacts on exposure. See the example you gave about creativity, even the ability to dream, even the quality of mind of these children. And that's something I don't think I would have ever really connected. Yeah, you might connect that to maybe other social impact, but maybe not energy. So seeing you make that connection, I think that's just really profound. And thank you so much for that. I'm just going to move on to my next question because of time. And that question is, what intentional strategies can stakeholders adopt to ensure that energy solutions in education are inclusive and equitable for both girls and boys?
Thank you, Shakina. For me, I would say to ensure that energy solutions in education are inclusive and equitable, stakeholders must move beyond one-size-fits-all approaches and design solutions that reflect real lived experiences, not from an assumption point of view. From our work, we know that access alone is not enough. Even in contexts where electricity exists, affordability remains a major issue, like I mentioned before. I was doing the research, and World Bank highlighted something in its work on energy and poverty, and it says something around energy and poverty has a direct connection. And I wouldn't want to waste our time, which we can actually take from what I said earlier on. Some steps are put out for stakeholders. Firstly, there should be a core design. Core design is very essential. And, from my work and involvement with United Nations, there's always a consistent emphasis that community-led approaches lead to more sustainable and effective development outcomes. So let us have a core design. Get the people that have the real lived experience and bring them together. Plus, like what Engineer Kemi said, the investors, to the teachers, to the people that are building the schools, get everybody involved. Secondly, there should be a strong focus on safe and enabling environment. And according to the UNESCO, I tried to do research, access to reliable electricity in schools and home is directly linked to increased study time and improved learning outcomes. So when we're talking about, education, power and education equally, this is something that we must bear in mind. Thirdly, I would say energy solutions should be integrated with broader educational outcomes. So I think the speakers have mentioned that we're not just looking at the traditional educational resources or topics or subjects. People should start, looking beyond the medicine, the medicine, the ICT. There's so many things that can be looked into. Also, I would say that finally, data and accountability are critical. UNICEF highlights this, that children without access to electricity are significantly less to engage in homework and digital learning, which is widening inequality again. So if we're looking at this kind of data from a perspective of wanting to make decisions, I feel like every stakeholder will take it seriously. Lastly, again, I'll mention on top of that, the UN Women, I'm part of them, and they always say something. They always emphasize on the importance of gender disaggregated data to ensure that interventions are equitable and inclusive, meaning that when you do the co-designing, when you ensure that there's a safe and environment, when you ensure that the data that you are gathering are, the real data, they're from lived experiences, it helps to have an accountable data. And what that means is it, transitions into creating a lasting solutions. Ultimately, if solutions are not designed with real community needs in mind, there's a risk of us missing those who needs it the most. So we need to bear that in mind as stakeholders.
Wow, amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much again for the insights that you've shared. I think one of the major things that stood out to me, you've shared a lot of things and there's a lot to unpack from what you've said. But the emphasis on real lived experiences, I think that's really profound, and it's something that stakeholders, governments, institutions, even the global community, and that's why we are in a space like this, the UN, ECOSOC, and organizations like this need to pay attention to. So, because I believe that it's easy to just come up with policies. It's easy to, there are sometimes that certain things they're fancy words, they sound sounding, you put them on paper, they look good on paper, but in reality, is that practically what the people that you are preferring those solutions for need? So I like that you are saying, bring it home, make it practical. you need to actually work with the people that you are preferring the solutions for, and it has to be based off real lived experiences. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I can say that across all four speakers, there are certain things or themes that have stood out to sustainability, affordability, even in terms of what you mentioned about integrating energy into the basic education curriculum or system. I think that's something that cuts across as well. So it's been amazing. It's been wonderful. You shared a lot of insight, and we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much for all that you've shared with us today, ma'am. Can we just celebrate and appreciate Mrs. Bolanle in the comment section, please? Let me see the clapping emoji in the chat. Let me see the thumbs up. Let me see the celebratory emojis. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all of the insights and gems that you've dropped today. All right. So thank you to all our speakers again. Thank you, Dr. Patrick, Engineer Kemi, Mr. Obasanjo, Mrs. Bolanle. We are so glad to have had you here with us today. And before we go into the session of question and answers, I'm just going to ask a general question, and I'll give each speaker about I wanted to say 2 minutes, but because of time, I'll just say 1 to a minute and a half for all of the speakers to just answer these questions. Thank you so much. So the question is, what is one practical action that stakeholders should take to ensure that energy solutions translate into better education outcomes for boys and girls? Did we get that? Okay, so what is one practical action stakeholders should take to ensure that energy solutions translate into better education outcomes for boys and girls? And I'm going to take it the reverse way. So I'll start from Mrs. Bolanle that we ended with, and then go to Dr. Patrick. Thank you. All right, Ma, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Akena. I think for me, one practical action the stakeholders should take is to ensure that every energy intervention is directly linked to a clear and measurable education outcome. And education outcome. And why I say this is because I like to do research a lot. Even as I speak, UNESCO, according to UNESCO, there's still millions of children globally that still lack access to basic learning conditions, including electricity, which directly affects attendance, performance, and long-term opportunities. So if we're talking about our future, if that's the data we're looking at right now, we are in trouble, if I may say so. So from what we see in our communities, if families are still having to choose between, electricity and food, and energy access hasn't yet translated into meaningful impact. So it's not just about installing infrastructure, it's ensuring that children can study after dark. It's the fact that we want to ensure that children can still attend school consistently, feel safe, and participate fully, but be it within school walls or even outside school program. So when we move from simply delivering energy access to delivering real outcomes, particularly for both girls and boys, I know you've given about girls, for both genders, then we can begin to see lasting change. My thought is no child should ever have to choose between lights to learn and the basics to life. And that should be a standard that everyone must work towards.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. So Mr. Obasanjo, I'm going to just post that question to you. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. I think one practical action we can take is we need to stop treating energy and education as separate sectors. For every intervention being brought into education in Africa, in any part of the world, in the US, in the UK, we need to have the energy component, because we're in the 21st century. Technology is now part of our learning. We cannot keep deploying technology without energy component of it. So we have the fine labs, the AI component is coming, but where is the energy to power it? So for every policy that is coming in, what are we doing around energy? Are we putting solar panels? Are we having solar farms? Are we having connection to the grid, unreliable, reliable energy, and ensuring that unstable energy is stopped. Because this way, we are now merging education and energy together as one. A lot of time we separate those solutions. Oh, access to school is there. We build a very big school, no power supply. We put millions of kids back into school, no way to learn, no tech, nothing. Those that have computers, do they have power in their house to power it? No. Those that have tablets might not even know how to even put it on. So we need to start combining these two together, because we have been separating a lot of things with education, just like we did with education and nutrition. We keep separating until something like COVID comes. Then we start running and combining them back. But we need to start thinking again from the beginning. Every solution, what is the energy component of it? And that way we can move further beyond where we are currently.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for that insight. Thank you so much. That's really insightful and really wonderful. So I'm going to move on to Engineer Kemi, just to share your insights on this question, please. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. The question again was, what do the three sectors need to do together? I think that's where we were, right? Sorry, I'm
no, this is like just a 1 minute
okay, 1
insight
minute,
to
like
share.
round up.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes, like a closing remark. And the question is that what is one practical action that stakeholders should take to ensure that energy solutions translate into better education outcomes for girls and boys?
Okay, brilliant. So along the line of the things that we've been discussing, lovely speakers here today. I must say I've listened to everybody and I've been blown away. So well done, everyone. And what's very important is it needs to be a founding component. So it cannot be an afterthought. Normally, just I think as the last speaker said, energy is something that we put into one box and then we address the box, we compartmentalize and address it at a particular point. But no, it's fundamental and it's foundational. So anybody believing in any form of educational institution, whether it's brick and mortar or whether it's actually virtual, one must first of all consider the energy solutions, and not just the energy solutions for immediate education, but the energy solutions for long-term sustainability and for long-term increase in the betterment of life. So, talking about how it can actually increase jobs or bring energy to the area or bring finance to the persons involved. But it should be a fundamental component written in as a mandatory policy to say energy is one of your first building blocks.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think Engineer Kemi would do well as a writer or spoken word poet, because the way you said it's fundamental and foundational. I like all of those, all of those quotes. But thank you so much for that. So I'll give the floor to Dr. Patrick just to share your closing remarks and your thoughts on that question. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Where can I even come in? I think the speakers have literally addressed all the main talking points. But I think I'll probably just reflect this into our own personal experience and some of the things that we're doing. I think other people should also do. So we build something called Net Zero Villages, which are basically off-grid communities, and within those villages, you have schools and people who will leave after schools and take homework home and do things with energy. But one of our key philosophies that within any net zero village that we build, we spent almost close to $10 million on net zero villages in Nigeria across different locations. And any project that we build has to include some education inclusivity. So that means we have to power schools or make sure the kids get some of the solar equipment and take back home. And that's a policy within our organization structure. And that's the way we're doing things. Other people might look at it differently. But I would say that for those locations who are not lucky for us to provide infrastructures in those areas, we should start looking at the leaderships that's responsible for those organizations, right? How is the budget split across in an academic year?
Absolutely.
What goes into energy, right? Because if we're always focusing on other things, extracurricular activities, and I know there's so much thing to spend on as a school, but then we ignore energy and we take it as the last part of the equation, right? Then the fundamental part of the equation is missing, and then
Yeah.
everything crashes. I think Mr. Abasanjo talked a bit about that. So we should really go back and look into that as well, and hold some of the leaders of these institutions that are more accountable. Look into the budget that they have for energy and see how do we make sure we solve this problem first, because it's a long-lasting problem. And one of the challenge is that we think a lot of times these institutions think very short term. So, okay, I'm probably going to lead this organization for the next 2 years. Why should I spend half of my budget and energy, and the next leader is going to benefit from this, right?
Yeah.
So if we're able to say, you know what, take the bait, make a decision now, put a good budget behind energy, and then get that problem solved. So that when the next 4 or 5 years when the school is still operational, energy is not the most challenging problem, but there's so much challenges around putting those things in place that we all probably can attest to. But I would say that we should start from ourselves. We're doing that ourselves as a company. I think everybody should look at themselves and think what they're doing themselves to get things through.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much. I can see the speakers clapping and giving you a thumbs up. That was really mind-blowing and insightful. Thank you so much for what you've shared, sir. And a big thank you to all the speakers. I think before I thank all the speakers, one of the things that Dr. Patrick mentioned, what I picked from that, look inwards, and everybody should play their part. So yes, I know the government has their part to play. I know that institutions have their part to play, but what are you doing as a person? And you have a part to play, and your part is not small. It's a collective thing. Eventually, the little drops of water will make a mighty ocean. And another thing that I picked to was more like saying, if the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Because when you said, when we ignore energy, we build every other thing, and then, we are ignoring the most important thing. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Patrick. Thank you so much to all our speakers. Thank you, Mr. Obasanjo. Thank you, Engineer Kemi. Thank you, Mrs. Bolanle. We are so glad to have had you on the session with us. Can we just celebrate all our speakers, please? Let's just appreciate them. Let me see the clapping emoji in the comment section. Let me see the thumbs up. Let me see the celebratory emojis. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So before we round up, it's now time for question and answers. But because of time, we're not going to be able to take too many questions. We'll just take about 1 or 2 questions. And if you have more questions, we'll drop our email address in the chat, and please send your questions to the email, and the team, the Temvert Foundation team, would get them across to the speakers and would also find a way to get their answers back to you. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please let me drop them in the comment section. But what I'll do for now, I'll just go back to the beginning and take the questions that some people have dropped in the chat. Okay, just 1 or 2 questions. The government shouldn't be in the business of doing business. Okay, so this is from Linda Aji. I'm not quite sure who this question is for, but I think any of okay, I can see one hand raised. So I think I'll take one from the chat, and I'll take the participant whose hand is raised, and that will be it, so we can finish on time. So the question is, how can energy solutions in schools be designed not only to promote gender equality in education, but also reduce environmental impacts like deforestation and biodiversity loss? Does any of our speakers want to take that question, or should I volunteer somebody? Is there anyone? Okay, since it's more about environmental impact, I think I'll give this question to Dr. Patrick.
I was going to say I'm not an environmental impact or deforestation expert, but I can try.
Okay.
So what I would say is when energy projects are implemented in schools, especially when we're thinking about it from a government-led perspective, gender equality and social inclusion, which is called GESI, is quite of an important metric that we measure. Now, expanding that metric into other things like environmental impacts, deforestation, biodiversity, it falls into a different sustainability bucket. So when projects are funded at the moment, a lot of effort is going towards gender equality and social inclusion. Naturally, because we are a renewable energy-led company, there is a general environmental impact benefit from renewable technologies like solar energy, wind, um, arbitrage of energy with battery storage. So the environmental impact with solar energy being as offsetting diesel or offsetting petrol generators seems to be something that is already being done at the moment with renewable energy projects. But I'm not sure about deforestation and biodiversity loss. That might be, I wouldn't answer that because I'm not an expert in that, so I don't know about much around that. But I think you'd probably do some more research or maybe ask someone who has an expertise in deforestation and biodiversity.
All right. No worries at all. Thank you so much. But I think you've done justice to it to an extent, especially the first part on how energy solutions in schools can be designed not only to promote gender equality in education. I think you were able to touch on that. Well, we'll take a note of that question, pass it across to the speakers, and we'll get your answers and get that back to the participant who asked the question. So I'm just going to call Ranvijay. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I got the pronunciation of your name correctly. You can unmute yourself and just ask your question.
So my question is to Mr. Obasanjo. So in your speech, when you were mentioning basically how some solutions to how energy can be made accessible. So you were mentioning how the waste to energy program is one of the main futures for Africa. But the thing is, when this program, the same program was implemented in the Philippines, it was seen, although the waste to energy program implies it's environmentally safe, it actually releases dioxins and furans, which are highly toxic, as well as heavy metals like mercury, lead, PM 2.5, as well as it releases fly ash, toxic ash, etc., etc., basically making it unfeasible with the environmental standpoint. And it also basically causes a mass loss of livelihood, such as waste pickers, junk shop workers, and small recycling traders. And we actually saw many riots and stand-ups in Manila because of the waste to energy program. So, how do you actually think that this can be implemented in Africa in a viable manner?
Okay. That's a very good question. I cannot pronounce your name, so I would not like to murder it. So let me just say RP. Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, so yes, the energy programs, especially the ones for waste to energy, where they are recycling hubs, there has been issues around some of this implementation across the world, especially in developing countries where we have seen it's not been properly implemented. However, better ways to do this is to implement it properly. So like the case you mentioned, I haven't read about it, but in similar countries where we have had those kind of issues, we have discovered that proper research wasn't done in the deployment of this. Currently, I stay in the United States, and just some distance to my house, there is a waste recycling plant that helps recycle a lot of this waste. Some of them are converted into energy, some into fertilizers and manure. However, what differentiates that plant from most plants in other part of the world is the level of research that went into it. So this plant is actually where people live, and they ensure it meets standards and ensuring that no level of bribe can take away the standards. So if we can have standardization done properly, it could reduce this issue of lead, lead release, zinc release, and the health issues it's having around communities, because there are better ways to do it. Secondly, aside just about a lot of people fear it will reduce jobs, but actually it has been seen that it actually produces more jobs, because a lot of people will start becoming waste collectors and take it to these plants to get paid. And from that, it will help them dot. Yes, sometimes it might reduce job, but we have to look at the positive part of it. What is the long-term impact of those jobs on the environment, and how as this new jobs is coming? It's just like the AI revolution. Because AI is taking some jobs out doesn't mean we have to say AI is stopped. But in the long term also, if these are properly done, the challenge we have with developing countries, I won't paint the word, is because of a lot of people beat the system. So rather than getting the real expert, the quality assurance expert to check if it was quality, most of them are just brought into an office, giving tea, food, and some envelope, and they tick all the forms in the offices and say, oh, it's of standard. Whereby if they have inspected that, they will have noticed this might cause health issues and advise the company to rectify even before it is being started or the plant is being put in full operation. So this has a lot of part on the government policies and how these plants are being set up and how it is being done. But however, a lot of waste has been converted, especially in parts like Africa. This waste has been changed to things like bricks to use to construct iron building. I know of a school in Lagos State that is constructed basically with Coca-Cola bottles and used to construct a full school. So when I was working on that project, the question we were asking the constructors were, what is the fire safety standard? Can we see your document on fire safety standard? Because if there's a fire outbreak, we have plastic so much around the school. What is the fate of the children in it? And so because I was working with the funding company, we ensured we were doing this to make sure. We could have overlooked it and say, oh, this is giving education, let's leave the fire part of. But what if there's a fire outbreak? What is the fate of people in the school? So we must make sure that these plants, when they are set up in various parts of developing countries, it is meeting global standards, because there are a lot of standards to this. Most plants generate toxins, but what is the standard? What are they doing to solve that problem? How are they reducing this within that community? What alleviations are they providing in these communities? And these are where the whole standard of carbon emission, and I think carbon, giving back carbon credits to the community comes into it. And this helps to ensure it works well. So I hope this helps.
All right, thank you so much. I'll just go the way of Mr. Obasanjo and say RP. Thank you for your question. That was really insightful. So we've come to the end of today's webinar, this side event on powering education equally, energy solutions for girls and boys. I'm just going to give the floor to Temvert Foundation's convener, Temitayo, for his closing remarks. And while I do that, can we just celebrate all our speakers again? Dr. Patrick, Mr. Obasanjo, Engineer Kemi, Mrs. Bolanle. Let's just celebrate them in the comment section. Let's just give them a thumbs up. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Temitayo.
I'm short of words. In fact, it's been very, very amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. I think the most interesting part of this event is our topic is personal to all our speakers, from the gender perspective, from the education sector, from development sector, from the energy sector. Our topic is personal. However, this topic is more personal to me as someone who most of his education in Nigeria. I understand firsthand how lack of energy could affect the learning outcome of students. So we always say that we are one of the survivors of a lack of energy. So it's been very, very amazing. When I was in Nigeria, it was very bad to an extent that you have to have a generator as a student. So if you have a generator, that's going to increase your learning outcome. So you're going to have a different experience compared to someone who doesn't have a generator, because there won't be light at all. I really appreciate everyone. I appreciate our speakers, Dr. Patrick Agese. I appreciate Engineer Ariola and Melody. I appreciate Mrs. Bolanle Oyediran, Mr. Obasanjo, Fajemirokun. Sincerely, I'm very grateful because we didn't have much time to put this together, and they've really shown up and given justice to this topic. At Temvert Empowerment Foundation, we look beyond just the surface issue, we look deeply. So we advocate for equal access to quality education, and we realize that one of the problems facing access to quality education is lack of energy, lack of electricity. It goes beyond we don't have paper, we don't have notebooks, we don't have pen. It's also about some things that are not well spoken about, and that is energy. Also, as an organization, we actually, recommend policies. We work with the governments. We recommend policies to the government to improve the experience of students. Thank you so much, everyone. I use this opportunity to appreciate the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs that gave us the opportunity to put this global event together. I also appreciate the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth. They gave us this platform also. We partner with them. And also, the co-sponsorship came from the Children and Youth International. We appreciate you, our participants. We appreciate everyone. In fact, it's been very amazing. We have participants from different parts of the world. We have, I think someone said she's from Tanzania, Gambia, India, Pakistan. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this conversation. We thank you. We appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you best evening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us, Temvert. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.